I built her life for 4 years, paid for everything. She said, "You're ruining the image," and chose another. She thought I'd just leave, but I knew all the passwords. It was karma. Before we begin, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button so you don't miss new stories. I was holding a $30,000 camera I had paid for, filming a woman I had spent 4 years building, when she looked at me like I was a stain on the carpet. We were in the hills of Tuscany, at a private villa that cost more per night than my first apartment cost for a year. The sun was dipping behind the cypresses, casting that perfect, honey-thick glow that every influencer calls golden hour. I was kneeling in the dirt, trying to get the low-angle shot she demanded, when her hand shot up to block her face. "Stop, Liam, stop," Chloe snapped, her voice cutting through the quiet chirping of the cicadas. "You're standing in the light. Your shadow is touching my dress. And honestly, look at you. You're sweaty, you're dusty, and you're ruining the entire vibe of this shoot." I looked down at my shirt. I was sweaty because I had spent the last 3 hours carrying 40 pounds of lighting equipment up a hill. I was dusty because I had been crawling on the ground to make her look 5 inches taller. "I'm just trying to get the flare right, Chloe," I said, my voice tight. She rolled her eyes and turned to the man standing behind her. That man was Julian. Julian was a spiritual brand consultant who wore silk shirts unbuttoned to his navel and spent my money on crystals he claimed cleared his chakras. "Julian, tell him," Chloe sighed. "He doesn't get it. He's so technical. He has no soul for the aesthetic." Julian stepped forward, adjusted his sunglasses, and looked at me with a smirk that made my skin crawl. "Liam, mate, the energy is off. You're focusing on the pixels, but we're focusing on the poem. Why don't you go back to the car? I'll take the rest of the shots on my iPhone. It feels more authentic." I looked at Chloe, waiting for her to say something. To remind him that I was the one who taught her how to pose. That I was the one who spent 10,000 hours editing her skin to look like porcelain. That I was the one who paid for the plane tickets, the villa, and the very dress she was wearing. She didn't even look at me. She was busy checking her reflection in Julian's sunglasses. "Yeah, go to the car, Liam. You're just cluttering up the frame. Your face is ruining the aesthetic." I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I simply stood up, packed my camera into its weather-sealed case, and walked down the hill. But I didn't go to the car. I kept walking past the villa, down the gravel path, until I reached the local taxi stand. I was done being the man behind the lens of a life I wasn't allowed to live. To understand how I ended up a ghost in my own relationship, you have to understand who Chloe was when I met her. 4 years ago, she was a waitress at a diner with a cracked phone screen and a dream of being a travel blogger. I was a professional architectural photographer with a stable income and a passion for symmetry. I fell for her because I thought she had a spark. I thought she was a project we could work on together. I built her world. I bought her the first professional camera. I spent my weekends teaching her about aperture, shutter speed, and color grading. When she didn't have enough followers to get brand deals, I used my industry connections to get her in the door. I was the silent partner, the invisible hand that turned a girl from a small town into a global brand. But as the numbers grew, the person I loved began to dissolve. She started talking about high-vibe alignment and manifesting abundance. She forgot that her abundance was actually my savings account. The transition was slow. First, she asked me to stop posting photos of us on my own social media because it confused her brand. Then, she stopped introducing me as her boyfriend at events, calling me her creative director instead. Finally, I became the production assistant. Then came the apartment. She insisted we move into a minimalist loft in the city center. 3 times the rent I was comfortable with. "It has the best natural light, Liam," she had argued. "It's an investment in my content." I paid the deposit. I paid the rent. I even paid for the white boucle sofa that I wasn't allowed to sit on because my jeans might leave a mark. I lived in a museum dedicated to her ego, and I was the only visitor who wasn't allowed to touch the exhibits. Julian appeared 6 months ago. He was a parasite disguised as a philosopher. He met Chloe at a wellness retreat in Bali, a trip I paid for, but couldn't attend because I had to stay home and work to cover the cost. When she came back, she was different. She talked about soul contracts and how some people are just bridges to help you cross into your higher self. "Liam, Julian says that you're my grounding force, but I've outgrown the ground," she told me one night over a dinner that I had cooked. "I need to be around people who challenge my artistic vision. You're very logistics-oriented. It's a bit stifling. Julian started showing up at the loft. He'd drink my expensive scotch and tell me that my work was too sterile. You're capturing the house, Liam, but you're missing the home, Julian would say, his feet up on my handmade coffee table. Chloe needs someone who can see her spirit, not just her cheekbones. I watched as he slowly moved into the space I had built. He started suggesting shoot locations. He started choosing her outfits. He started whispering in her ear that she didn't need a cameraman. She needed a muse. The Tuscany trip was supposed to be our anniversary, a chance to reconnect. But at the last minute, Chloe told me that Julian had to come along. He's the creative lead for my new campaign, she said. It's business, Liam. Don't be so insecure. It's low frequency. So there I was, in Italy, playing chauffeur and bag carrier for the woman I loved and the man who was stealing my life. After the taxi dropped me off at the airport, I didn't fly back to the city. I went to London. I stayed in a small hotel and opened my laptop. I felt a strange, cold peace. For years, I had been the one maintaining the servers, the passwords, and the cloud storage for Chloe's entire digital empire. She didn't even know her own password to the domain host. She thought the internet was just something that happened magically. I started with the finances. We had a business account for her brand, but it was linked to my primary bank. I unlinked it. I canceled the supplementary credit cards. I called the rental agency for the loft and informed them that I would not be renewing the lease at the end of the month. Then, I went to the cloud. Every photo Chloe had ever taken, every edited video, every raw file for her upcoming book, it was all stored on my private server. I didn't delete them. I'm not a monster. But I moved them. I moved them to a physical encrypted drive and changed the access protocols. Then came the social media. I didn't change her passwords. I did something much more effective. I turned off the two-factor authentication that was linked to my phone. I removed my backup email. I left her the keys to the castle, but I took away the bridge. The last thing I did was send a single email to the 3 major brands she was currently working with. Dear partners, I wrote. As the sole owner of the intellectual property and the primary photographer for the Chloe Vance brand, I am hereby revoking the usage rights for all images produced under my direction, effective immediately, due to a breach of contract. I shut my laptop. I went to a pub, ordered a pint of bitter, and watched a football match. For the first time in 4 years, nobody told me my face was ruining the vibe. The phone call started 36 hours later. I was sitting on a park bench in Richmond, watching the rowers on the Thames, when my phone began to vibrate uncontrollably. Chloe, 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 Julian, Chloe. I let it ring. Then the texts started flooding in. Liam, where are you? The cards aren't working. We're at the airport, and the hotel said the bill was declined. This isn't funny. An hour later, why can't I log into the server? I need to upload the Tuscany vlog. Liam, answer me. 2 hours later, the brand manager for the watch company just called. They said they're pulling the campaign because of a legal issue with the photos. What did you do? I waited until I was back in my hotel room before I finally picked up. I didn't call her. I sent a voice note. Chloe, I've decided to lean into the aesthetic you wanted, I said, my voice calm. You said I was cluttering up the frame. You said my face was ruining the vibe. So, I've removed myself completely. I've removed my money, my gear, my photos, and my logistics. You have your spirit, and you have Julian. I'm sure you two can manifest a way home. I blocked both of them. When I got back to the city a week later, I moved my things out of the loft in 4 hours. I didn't leave a note. I left the white boucle sofa, though. It was a parting gift. I moved into a house by the sea, a place with rugged, messy, uncurated beauty. I started taking photos of things that didn't talk back, cliffs, storms, and old lighthouses. 3 months passed. I was at a gallery opening for my new series, The Invisible Coast, when I saw a woman standing near the back. She looked older than her years. Her hair was a messy bun, and she was wearing a coat that looked like it had seen better days. It was Chloe. She wasn't the glowing goddess of the Tuscany hills. She was a woman who had realized that you can't pay for a latte with high-vibration energy. She walked over to me, her eyes red-rimmed. Liam, she whispered. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel joy. I just felt a mild, distant curiosity. Hello, Chloe. I'm sorry, she said, the words coming out in a rush. He's gone. He left the moment the brand sued. He said my energy had become too negative. I lost the loft. I'm staying with my mom. I can't get my accounts back, Liam. Nobody will work with me. They say I'm a legal liability. She reached out to touch my arm, her hand shaking. Please. I know I was awful. I got lost in it. But we were a team. You made me beautiful. Can we try again? I'll do anything. I'll give you 50% of the brand. I'll put your name on everything. I looked at her, and for a moment, I saw the girl from the diner. But then I looked at the photos on the wall, my photos. They were sharp, honest, and they didn't require a filter to be powerful. I'm not a creative director anymore, Chloe, I said, and I'm certainly not a production assistant. I'm just a photographer. But you love me, she pleaded. You spent 4 years building me. No, I said, gently removing her hand from my arm. I spent 4 years building a cage for myself. And I finally realized that the only thing ruining my aesthetic was the belief that I needed to be in your frame to exist. I looked her up and down, mirroring the cold, calculating gaze she had given me in Italy. I saw the desperate makeup, the forced posture, the hollow eyes of someone who only exists if someone is watching. You look tired, Chloe, I said softly. Maybe you should go home. This gallery has a very specific vibe, and honestly, you're just cluttering up the shot. I turned away and walked toward the center of the room. I didn't look back. I didn't check the reflection in the glass. I just kept walking, perfectly in focus, in a life that finally belonged to me. The lighting was perfect. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new interesting stories.